Quentin Musty has been one of the most impressive players for the Sharks during training camp. Who else has seen their stock rise or fall?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at The Reef, my personal blog about the San Jose Sharks with an emphasis on Sharks prospects, as well as the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network, we cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be doing a little stock up, stock down, as we're kind of through the first two preseason games here, talking about who's made good strides so far, who's seen their stock kind of dip compared to where we thought going into training camp, plus get caught up on some of the news and notes and the potpourri around the San Jose Sharks. So before we get to all that, I do want to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Dial the FanDuel up now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So we'll start with the positive here. And I think you have to talk about Quentin Musty and his performance so far during training camp. I still think Quentin Musty starts the season in the AHL. But that time in the AHL feels like it might be a lot shorter compared to what I originally thought kind of over the summer here. Musty has been given a lot of opportunities, and he's earned those opportunities, right? And as we talked about before last week, where he really has had a very good summer. We know last season wasn't the season that he wanted, with the trade request that got denied, and then of course breaking his hand and missing 6 weeks, and then it just wasn't the season that he really wanted last year. And it seems like he took this summer very serious to get ready for his first full season of professional hockey. And Musty has been very impressive. And you see that Musty being a bigger guy, right? 6'2", 200 pounds. And you hope when the Sharks drafted him that he could kind of be that next power forward type of player. And I don't know if Musty's ever going to be like a true power forward, but he can have some power forward qualities, and you're seeing some of those qualities, right? Like the hard forward checking, the getting in there, getting in the greasy spots, and scoring, trying to score big goals that way, right? And plenty of NHL career players have made long careers scoring very greasy goals. There's nothing, they don't ask how, right? They just ask how many. And there's nothing quite like a greasy goal. But I mean, and Quentin Musty, don't get me wrong, Quentin Musty has plenty of skill. One of the best transition players among the Sharks prospects, of just his ability to carry the puck from point A to point B. In his snapshot, like that shot of his, wicked fast. He can put it through a pinhole or put it through a keyhole. Sorry. He can put it wherever he wants. The offensive skill is there. But right, it's the big question with these young players. If you're not scoring, what else can you do? And I think the fact that Musty has been so impressive without really lighting up the scoreboard, I think it goes is a big sign for Quentin Musty, and I think he's going to have a big year. I thought, like I said, during the summer, I thought he was going to take a little bit of time to kind of get used to the AHL. And again, we're in training camp, we're in preseason. This is a big week for all these guys here. But I think Quentin Musty has to have been one of the most impressive players for the Sharks. That's a good sign for Musty, good sign for the Barracuda, and hopefully a good sign for the San Jose Sharks here as Quentin Musty continues his development. Some other guys, and I don't want to harp on Dickinson and Misa, because we talk about Dickinson and Misa, after every game. And thanks to everybody who tuned into the hotel lobby version of Locked On Sharks on Friday night. So we harp on those guys all the time. So I kind of wanted to spread the love elsewhere, right? But I can't not talk about Musty and the way he's been performing this preseason and training camp. So I wanted to talk about Philipp Kurashev. So Kurashev played in the first preseason game, and with Celebrini out with an illness, and we'll get to him here in a little bit, he kind of stepped in that first line role, and I thought he did an admirable job, right? And this is a guy who we kind of thought might be a potential top 6 guy, especially with if Misa was going to play the wing. Of course, we know all that kind of got blown up with Will Smith playing the wing now, and Misa expected to be the 2C. Kurashev is, a guy who's going to have to probably fill in on the third line here, but for him showing that wing center flexibility, I thought he played really well in that game, and is a player who's looking to have a rebound type of season, especially after such a poor season last year with Chicago, right? And he just talked about how he just never really kind of found his groove. He dealt with some injuries, et cetera, et cetera. But a guy who scored, 50 plus points the year before, see his stock drop down to 14. You're hoping this isn't a Kevin LeBanc 2.0 situation where, right, he hits that 50 points and just is never able to kind of get back to those heights again. So I think though Kurashev, it's a guy who, is definitely going to be gunning for, one of these middle 6 type of jobs. And the hope is guys like Kurashev and Adam Gaudette, who I thought played pretty well as well, and Colin Graff, these guys can help kind of push down your Barclay Goodrows and your Ty Dellandres and your Ryan Reeves and your Carl Grundstroms, and get just better players on. And I know a lot of people were, and myself included, very disappointed with Dellandrea and Goodrow's play on Friday night, and just their the penalties and all that type of stuff. But the more that these guys play and play well, your Gaudettes and your Kurashevs, Warsawski, the hope is he has to keep these guys, those guys on the ice, and hopefully push some of these fourth line guys into the healthy scratch category. So I thought, like I said, I thought he played really well. I think that a lot of the defense has played pretty well for the most part. And I think Orlov had a really nice showing on Friday night. I thought Mika Madulin looked pretty good as well. I know we're still kind of waiting to see what happens with John Klingberg as he's kind of working his way back from injury here. And again, we've talked about Sam Dickinson about we lead every podcast with Dickinson, after games, but I do think Orlov is set to be in a position to have a strong year with the Sharks, right? He has the opportunity, right? He's going to be the guy with San Jose, and if he can kind of balance that two-way defenseman of not trying to push for offense too much, right, but trying to help push for offense and still be a steady defender in the defensive zone and help get that puck from point A to point B. And I mean, you look at what Mike Greer did this summer with the guys like Leddy and Klingberg and Orlov. These guys are, Leddy looks back to his self when it comes to his speed. If these guys can be back to, close to 100% or close to what they were before, I do think the Sharks defense could not be the worst defense in the NHL, right? We're keeping the bar, right? What's the saying? Under promise, over deliver. I think that's what we're hoping for with the defense here, where again, I don't think it's going to be some shutdown defensive unit or even a top half of the league unit. But if you can go from being the worst to mediocre, I think that's a big improvement. That's going to help your guys like Nedeljkovic and Askarov. But I think Leddy and Orlov in particular, I think Orlov's going to have a big season for San Jose to try to help get the puck going, right, and help make your lives easier for your forwards like Celebrini and for Will Smith, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think from what you were reading or hearing and stuff, like there's been some really nice, developments from some of these players here and kind of how they're performing. And, some guys living up to expectations and some guys are, exceeding expectations so far as we kind of trudge through training camp here. So we're going to look at guys who've kind of seen their stock dip, during training camp. I think we have to talk about Igor Chernyshov, has been very quiet during training camp and rookie face-off. So we'll talk about him. We'll talk about Jack Thompson. Then we'll get to the news, notes, and intriguing items around the Sharks. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is there for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. They can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get a smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It's like your own personal Puckpedia, people. And the great thing is you can maximize investments, increase your savings rates, easily review finances with your partner and or financial advisor, which I think is huge too, right? If you and your partner have separate accounts, they make it really easy to work together. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right. Before we continue, of course, want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe as we have a ton of games this week. We had 2 games all of last week. We have 4 this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, 4 games this week. So we will have coverage for you after all the games. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. So, all right. Some players performing well. Some players just kind of under delivering or not kind of performing expectations. I think you have to start with Igor Chernyshov, who after last year, right, we especially in the OHL, you saw the performances that he had, and it carried over with the San Jose Barracuda during the playoffs. He looked like he belonged last year in the playoffs, and right, the hype behind Chernyshov, it was this summer. Like, you got Michael Misa, you're gonna have Chernyshov Misa for the next bajillion years. And that doesn't mean we can't continue to have Igor Chernyshov. And as a reminder, with every prospect, right, its development isn't a linear path. It goes up and down, and it peaks and plateaus, and right, it's a windy road. And I think with Chernyshov, it's, yes, he's a guy who has played professional hockey in the KHL before, but it's different playing in the NHL. And he had a pretty quiet rookie faceoff, and even playing with Misa, which you would expect the chemistry there with those two. And in the preseason here, he's very quiet game on Friday night. It looked like he lost his spot for a little bit there, and kind of came back into it. But it's just it looks like it's been a little bit of a bumpier road for Chernyshov than I think a lot of us had hoped kind of coming into training camp. And there was talk of some fans thought he could potentially make the team out of camp. I think it's pretty clear like he's going to need some time in the AHL to one, get his confidence going again, right, and 2, just kind of continue to iron out his game, right, and especially with Musty, where the comparison, right, where a lot of people kind of like those two have always, when you look at like the rankings, right, a lot of people like the Musty Chernyshov rankings are usually really close to each other. Quentin Musty is also a year older, right, and Chernyshov, who's he's played 1 season in the O, he spent or half a season in the O, spent a lot of time over in Russia, it's okay for him to take a little bit of time here to get his feet under him over here in San Jose and spend some time in the AHL, and where I think he's going to have a great season. He's going to play top 6 minutes in the AHL. He's going, and I think he's going to, once he kind of gets his feet under him, he's going to quickly remind you why Igor Chernyshov is thought to be a steal when the Sharks drafted him in the beginning of the second round in the 2024 draft. So, but again, right now, just kind of not where we thought, I think is the best way to put it for Chernyshov. Just not really thought where we thought he'd be right now. So, and then I think another one of these kind of bubble guys here is Jack Thompson. And Shang did a really good article on him and kind of what his value is and stuff over at San Jose Hockey Now. But like, I don't want to spoil too much because it's behind a paywall, but he polled a bunch of scouts, and most scouts were like, he's probably going to get through waivers. If Jack Thompson gets put on waivers, and this is the guy who I thought last year probably should have been playing more in the NHL than he did. But again, like when you add guys like Sam Dickinson, and when you add the 3 vets that they did, that takes somebody else's potential job away. And it looks like Jack Thompson's going to be that guy. Like, again, right? If a guy goes down and, one of these NHL guys go down, whether it's Letty or Orlov or whomever, if one of these guys gets hurt, would you be surprised if Jack Thompson's maybe not one of the first calls up? Because he's a guy who I do think the Sharks kind of have to make a decision on here. And if they want to continue to invest in Thompson and what his future is. But I think he's going to be a big piece for the Barracuda, playing probably second pairing minutes, right, with Luca Cagnoni on the top line, probably with Cole Clayton, give Cagnoni a more defensive responsible partner. But I think Thompson can have a really good season in the Barracuda, kind of get that stock back up. And, if some of these guys get moved, or like I said, some of these guys maybe get hurt, I do expect Thompson to play NHL games this year, just because that's just the nature of the NHL, where sometimes you got to call on your 7th, 8th, 9th defenseman to play because guys just get hurt and stuff happens. It's a very fast game and things happen, unfortunately. So, but for a guy who maybe could have been pushing for a job, I think there's a clear, 7 or 8 guys in front of him, right? You think of, the guys I just mentioned. I think Darnay's has had, pretty, like, his performance in training camp looked pretty good. Luca Cagnoni, I think is ahead of him, but we know Luca Cagnoni is kind of your secret weapon. You don't want to pull out too early, I guess, if you're San Jose. But I think it's fair to say Thompson's probably 9th right now in the pecking order. Like, looking at all the guys, he's probably 9th in the pecking order right now for San Jose. So 9th or 10th, but and then I don't want to harp on it too much, but like the Goodrow Dellandrea combo, like it's if your 4th line is some combination of Goodrow, Dellandrea, Reeves, Grunstrom, I think you're setting yourselves up to have a really bad time there. And I think that's going to be a tough life to live for the Sharks when that line comes out on the ice. And they did not do themselves any favors after Friday night's performance. So again, like, there's, we'll see kind of what happens there. And that's where you want like a guy like Ethan Cardwell, who played really well on Friday night's game and knows that there's a job, or Igor Afasneyev, or one of these other guys where like maybe there's a little bit more there to hopefully win one of these jobs at some point. But yeah, it's those guys are, I get their purpose. They're great in the room, right? They have roles to fill. You're kind of playing with one hand tied behind your back when those guys kind of step on the ice, unfortunately. So, but we'll see. This is a big week though for training camp, as kind of, especially with the preseason games, you're going to see more NHL guys on the games, like in the games, in the preseason games, as they kind of start to ramp up and get ready for the start of the regular season here. So this is a big week for a lot of these guys here, and we'll see kind of how this goes. Chernyshov could turn around and have a great week this week, and Musty could have a poor week as the competition kind of goes up a notch here. So we're going to finish up by kind of just going through some of the news, notes, intriguing items around the San Jose Sharks. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. If you have the Rams winning today, probably feel really good. Or maybe you're a Bears fan, probably feeling really good about those today. So, but the great thing about FanDuel is it covers how you like to play. They've got parlays, player props, or if you're just want to follow the live lines during the game. Nothing like seeing that underdog come back and pull off a big win. So, if you're ready to start playing, visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. I'm also super excited to tell you about my new favorite pair of jeanswear brand, Doer. I've been living in the performance denim straight jeans, and honestly, they've completely changed the game for me. I love my Doer jeans because, one, they look good. That's important, right? You want to feel like your pants look good, but two, they're super comfortable. They have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. And there's a reason why they call them the world's most comfortable pants. But don't take my word. Go try a pair on for yourselves. Doer just opened a store in Hayes Valley. You can feel the difference firsthand. Go check them out on 567 Hayes Street. Mention our promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order. Or check them out online at shopdoer.com/LockedOnSF for 15% off. That's shopdoer.com/LockedOnSF. Before we finish up, do want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Steele and Flip provide daily fantasy tips to give you the edge over your league mates, all while making you a smarter hockey fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we're hanging in here. My throat. I cheered too much for my kid at his soccer tournament this weekend. My throat is dying right now, as you guys can pretty clearly tell. So let's finish this up with some news, notes, and intriguing items. So the Sharks did make a couple of roster moves, sending back Haoshi Wang and Carson Wetch to their respective junior teams as the Sharks continue to whittle down their roster. I thought Wetch looked really solid in his both in the rookie faceoffs and in the preseason game as well. Like he's a guy I do think has a future with the Sharks, and what it's probably going to be a third line energy type of guy, which is fine. But he plays hard. I think he's consistent. You've seen that in the WHL with he's a consistent scorer. Like he's going to put up the occasional hat trick here and there, but it's, one goal. Like he is, a consistent type of player. And I think that's what you want and need on your middle to bottom six there. I think Wetch is going to definitely fill that role. It'll be interesting to see what the Sharks do with him this upcoming season, right? Because he's going back to the WHL. He got traded to Kawana, where they're going to be playing in the Memorial Cup this year, since they're the host city. But his rights do technically expire next season. Does he go to college for some, do they ask him, see if he wants to go to college for a year or two, or do they maybe sign him to his ELC to go play with the Barracuda next year? kind of care. I think he's gonna, he's going to be in the San Jose system for a while, and I think he's earned that. But I'm curious to see what his next step is for him. And then Hao-Shi Wang, right? We knew that this was going to like he was going to be going back to the OHL, and he's eventually going to be going to college, after this season in the OHL. But would have liked to have seen some game, but I know he's dealing with a little bit of something here, so. But yeah, excited to watch him get to play kind of big time minutes in the OHL this year, and kind of as he continues to progress and develop. So I think he's going to get a big opportunity this year with Oshawa. So, so we have those news and notes. More news and notes as we're in the potpourri category of Jeopardy here. I'll take Macklin Celebrini for $200. Celebrini. So he's kind of practicing, kind of not. Like he's in the no contact jersey, dealing with an illness, but it's right. It's kind of weird how they're being very careful with him right now, right? Because like normally it's like an illness. Okay, if you're back to being good, being healthy again, like okay, like you're back, go play. But you're seeing that they're being very careful with him and stuff. So it doesn't look like he's going to get a preseason game at some point this week, I would assume. But like how does like it's just a little weird that they're being very careful with him. So which I get, it's your franchise, but you wonder, you wonder you wonder if it was like COVID or something, or if he like lost a lot of weight or something like that. Maybe he got the flu or something like that and lost a lot of weight, and he's still kind of getting back to being 100% with it. So, but again, that's the franchise. You want him ready for opening night, not the preseason as much. So, but those are interesting things there. And then just kind of some fun stuff. Love we didn't really talk about the jersey. Love the I love the heritage jerseys. Great job, Sharks. 100% like going to be getting one of those. Just have to decide. Probably Smith or Misa. Trying to decide. Let me know. Smith or Misa. What do you guys think? So 'cause I have the Celebrini, like regular one. I have an Eklund one, right? I had the Smith like USA hockey, bring back like hockey one. I don't know, Smith or Misa. I'm trying to decide. If Misa doesn't make the team, it makes it pretty easy. I'm a big believer in like the player has to have actually worn the jersey at some point. Like that's I'm a big believer in that. Like they have to have actually worn that jersey in a game. So I feel like Smith or Misa, one of those guys will definitely have worn it. So love those. Love the thing that the Sharks did with Toffoli. Brody Brazil reading as Toffoli, reading the story to Will and Mac. Great job. I feel like the Sharks, other than the AI stuff, the Sharks admin has been having themselves a very nice start to the season. So, but yeah, it's we're getting there. I'm really excited about this week. I think like I said, this is a big week for Dickinson and Misa and Musty, as you're going to see the competition ramped up. We have 4 games this week, 4 games in 6 nights. And I know it'll be split up right between, between kind of the 50 players they have, but and then we're going to start to kind of see that Barracuda roster get filled out a little bit more here, as I'm sure there'll be more cuts, and we'll start to kind of get ready for that final roster here. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until tomorrow, bye, friends.